Good morning, evening, afternoon, midnight, dawn, dusk, whatever. How are you guys? Coming to you with another video, this time about the pros and the cons of big gigs as an actor, a producer, director, writer, whatever it is that you do as a creative artist. Everybody seems to be after the big gigs. I want to focus this conversation on actors and on producers or directors, but because a lot of you guys are a mixture of all, maybe even writers. But you can apply this almost across any industry. This is a business principle that a lot of people get wrong in their heads. And I don't get it. So, I mean, I do get it, because I was the same. I was chasing the big gigs, and let me organize my thoughts here. A big gig is what? It's a big gig. It's pays well. It usually has to do with influential people. There's, in the context of a film, maybe there's exciting distribution behind it, or it's a TV show, a series regular, or a major movie, or not even a major movie. Could be a $2 million Netflix movie, but it's something that's fairly sizable and substantial as compared to, being on a small business commercial as an actor or a host, or being like a good friend of mine. Tom Katzis, from my video, the Millennial Job Interview, the gentleman in the scene, that viral video, President Lincoln. He goes around and he does President Lincoln impersonations, because he kind of looks like Lincoln, and it's been a pretty steady gig. So more on that in a second. Big gig versus small gig, producer, director. So for producer, that might mean developing a TV show, developing a movie, selling something, pitching, big ideas. Working with a big account if you're an advertiser, landing something like T-Mobile or whatever it is for your agency or company, production company, or landing a big agency or a job through an agency. So what are the pros and what are the cons? And I want to be very careful here in how I present this, so I hope I do it justice. But I relying, it's basically everybody wants the big gigs, and they're great to get. And there are also dangers involved with them. And I'm not saying don't chase them. I'm saying be aware of what comes along with the big gigs, and when you only rely on those or focus on those. A lot of actors do that. A lot of directors and producers do that. They sort of think of themselves above little things, short films, student films, a small business commercial, if you're, on the production end, even working with a client for a Facebook video, so a job for $2,000 or $3,000 instead of $20,000 or $30,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 or $2 or $3 million. And the way to look at gigs is, the larger the gig, the less sort of frequent they are, the more work it takes to generate that gig, the more people are involved, and the less it's out of your hands. The less it's in your hands, the more it's out of your hands too. So this is large gigs, out of your hands, depending on many other people, less frequent, and require a lot of work. Generally take a long time. People think, well, commercials, big commercials, they sort of fall in the middle, but they take a long time to get, and they do require a lot of work, often months and months of work. It's just that the shoot days maybe 1 or 2 days. So as an actor, if you get a commercial, good. But again, as you might know, you don't land a national commercial every other week. You get those once in a while. So again, it takes a long time to get. For a director or producer, a lot of work. Pitching, trying, doing things on spec, losing out on bids until you land one. So I'm listing a lot of cons here. The pros are, of course, you make a lot of money. You get prestige. Instantly you feel like you're at the highest possible level. You're on a commercial for T-Mobile. You're at the top of your commercial game. You're on a movie on Netflix or even a theatrical release with a major star in it. You're at the top of your acting game. You direct something like that. Big deal. And produce it, of course. So why is that? That's the benefit. And we all want that. But when you rely on that, even if you've had some success with those kinds of gig, you're playing a dangerous game. You're playing with your stability, your security, your certainty, your life in a sense, your livelihood, because big gigs can dry up, and they do. When you're thinking about your career, you don't want to work a day job to make your money, ideally, because you're outside of the industry, right? We covered that in a video that I made a few days ago when I was talking about production as a service versus as a product. Ideally, you would focus everything that you're doing in the industry somehow. And if you do that, and all you do is rely on big gigs, you're freaking out between gigs all the time. Because you might pitch a show and sell it. And you might get a big gig or get a recurring role on a TV show. And you're getting paid as sort of a recurring, guest star or whatever that is. I don't know. Maybe it's like $10,000 for the week, which isn't terrible. It's not series regular money, but it's good. So you get a few of those and you made 60 grand in a couple of months and you're feeling pretty good. Well, then for 6 months it disappears, and now you sort of have to live off of that money. So you have to be very budget conscious, and you're hustling up, and you're grinding, and you're trying to get more gigs in the meantime. But what if that doesn't come, or what if it takes longer for it to come around? Because you're depending on everybody else to have something that's a good fit for you, and you're also competing with other people. So you're sort of in this pool of, starting over again. And I knew that, like a long, long time ago, years and years ago, like over a decade ago, I was at a gentleman's house who was called Michael Badalucco, and I was working for a company, and just by chance, it was his house. Michael Badalucco is he was Babyface Nelson in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And he was, I believe, on a show called The Practice or The West Wing, or one of those sort of political shows, and good stuff. And he was in his basement in his house and in his home office looking for a job. Now, the guy's had some success, and I'm sure he's got his budget worked out, and maybe he's diversified his investments and has various revenue streams. I'm not sure of his, savvy with finances. But he's looking for a gig. And he told me this. He said, Daniel, it's like starting over every time. And you don't know when it's going to come, what's going to come around. And God forbid you take the wrong job. And it puts your career off on a tangent. And, it's a very scary way to live. So why am I saying all this? Those are the big gig mentality things. And that seems to be what everybody's chasing. Now I want to shift your attention over to the little gigs. They're more frequent. They're stable. You can repeat them more often. It's easier for somebody to give you $1,000, $5,000, even $10,000. More people are able to do that. And you can control it more if you find that gig. And you can keep it within the realm and space of what you're doing and what you're interested in. So what does that mean for a guy like me, for instance? And this applies to actors as well. Like I said for Tom Katz's, the Abraham Lincoln example. Between jobs as an actor and trying and hustling, why not get hired by high schools and various, or elementary schools, or middle schools, or whatever it is, and various other institutions, children's programs for cities and whatnot, as Abraham Lincoln? You're acting. You're getting paid a little bit, but now you sort of have a proof of concept, something that you can sell. You've sort of monetized the skill that you have, and it's closely related to what you want to do on the screen, and you can make some income with that, and you can develop a system to market and sell that. You can even get an agent who helps you get more gigs like that specifically. Or as a comedian, for instance, I know a friend of mine. You know, everybody, a comic wants to do the Laugh Factory and the Comedy Store and all those sort of big clubs, and have their specials on Netflix, and that's great. But corporate gigs, universities, places that bring in entertainment. There are institutions who have agendas and schedules and would pay to bring a comedian in for entertainment or whatever it is, event halls, utilizing your tool in spaces that are similar to what you want to be doing, but not exactly the same. So for like a guy like me, I'm doing a commercial gig with, let's say, Crayola, which I'm actually working on right now, right? So that's nice, bigger job, comes around once in a while. Perfect. But in the interim, and I'm also developing a film, or actually there's a film in production, but because of COVID, we're not shooting it right now. So we're just waiting until it's safe to fly to the Dominican Republic, and then we'll go make the movie. But those are two, big gigs that are there, that come around once in a while. And I have friends and co-producers who rely on these gigs. They freak out. They're freaking out right now because, when most of your money or all of your income comes from making movies, for instance, and then COVID happens, or, you just can't get funding in place, or a movie flops or whatever, it's a bad situation. You freak out, you go into debt, you have to live off of your savings. It's very difficult. That's never a problem for me because I have Dreamreach Media that does content for actors, short form. It's repeatable. I can do it over and over again. I can work within the space that I enjoy and create narrative, creative content, high quality content. Keep my team moving and keep entertainment employers, entertainment workers, cinematographers and directors active and around me. And I can serve people doing it, solve problems. I have clients, small business, medium-sized business clients that I do campaigns for. Video content retainers and things like that, who pay me, small amounts each, a couple grand or something each, per month, to maintain their productions, their videos, or their ad campaigns, right? And that's the point that I wanted to make. You can go for the big gigs, but keep yourself sane and paid and healthy and happy with small gigs. They're easier. They're easier to come by, and they're easier to produce. They're easier to get hired for. And as an actor, you need to, if you're interested in doing production anyways, which all actors eventually realize that they need to take, their career in their own hands and probably produce their own shorts or their own movies. I mean, just think of literally anybody from Clint Eastwood to Adam Sandler to, Ben Stiller, Tom Cruise, and all these people. Tyler Perry's a great example. So I mean, it's everybody ends up doing that. Angelina Jolie, it goes on and on. They all have production companies. So at some point, you're going to realize if you're an actor that you don't want to just rely on others to constantly give you gigs. It'll dry up at some point. You might be on a roll now, and it might not dry up, and you might make FU money and not have to worry about it after a huge series, like if you get on Seinfeld or something and you happen to be Seinfeld, and great, he doesn't necessarily need another show. So but if that doesn't happen, what are you going to do when it dries up? Take matters into your own hands. So you're going to produce. So then if that's the path that your mind's going, okay, I want to produce myself anyways, now you can think about, well, what does that mean? It doesn't mean go out and pitch movies. You should do that, but you're not going to right away be successful with movies. And it might take you years and years. It might take you decades. You never know. So you leverage the skills that you have in producing And go back to that using production as a service video that I had on this channel earlier and see what I mean. Find something you're passionate about and start producing content. Small content, demo reels, dance videos, videos for arts and crafts stores in LA, commercial content, content for influencers, whatever it is. Get comfortable with producing stuff, make a little bit of money consistently, because if you can lock in 4 gigs a month at $1,000 or $2,000 each, which is very low for video production, you can make basically what an average person's salary is every month just doing small productions, and use the rest of the time to develop your craft and go to acting class and pay for short films that you're making, etc., etc. So that's, I guess, the gist of this video. Remember, the big gigs, you can still get those, you can still look for those, but stabilize yourself with the small stuff, and you'll be much more sane, and your spouse and children will be much more appreciative, because you're not going to be losing, your hair's not going to be turning gray like mine is anyway. So sometimes you just can't stop nature from progressing. So if you like this content, subscribe. I'm planning on doing more of these. I'm kind of enjoying this. I never thought I'd do YouTube videos, but here we are. Seems to be an interesting thing, and I seem to be able to get some good value out there for you. I'm getting good responses. That's why I'm keeping on doing these. So keep emailing me back when I mail these out to you guys on the mailing list. Keep commenting, like them, of course, subscribe, whatever people do with YouTube videos. Mucho apreciado, and I'll see you on the next one.